if you do not like what's going on in your life, you need to look inward versus looking outward. We like to look outward and say, well, it's because of my boss, or it's because I don't have any money, or so-and-so is being mean. That's all giving your power away. Your power lies inward, and therefore you need to look inward and see what you're doing, what you need to change inside of you to empower yourself.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast, where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. You'll leave with at least one new piece of inspiration or information to help you keep going north. Now let's get on with the show. Another episode, another review highlight, and this one comes from Rock and Roll Professor, and they left a 5-star review titled Insightful and Inspirational. Dom is a wonderful host who knows how to bring out the best in his guests. Go north and get ready to learn something new. Thanks a bunch, Rock and Roll Professor, and if you too have a review to leave about the podcast, do so on Apple Podcasts or goingnorthpodcast.com, and we'll be sure to highlight it and read it aloud in a future episode. Now let's get on with today's episode. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, is the Going North Podcast. We got another super special, awesome human for you today. And this one's actually courtesy of a good buddy of mine. And so when I brag about a lot on the show, the one and only Stan McCluskey. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Check out his episode. It'll be in the show notes. But today's super special, awesome guest, baby. That's right, that SPA. She is a common sense activist. So by default, she's already going to be a great guest for being a common sense activist. The first one on the show and one of many that we need on the freaking planet, as well as a self-love teacher and an independent filmmaker. So that's right, folks. This guest has mastered the art of 32 hours in one day, indeed. So let's give it up for the JM herself, the one and only Joffre McClung. How you doing today, Joffre?
Hey, I'm doing great. I'm so thrilled to be on your show. I just love it, and I have many things to say.
That's right. Many things to say, indeed, because you ain't a one and done author. You got two. They're shiny.
They're shiny. They're out there. You can get them.
That's right. Buy them by the boatload. That's right, indeed. Make sure you buy enough so a sumo wrestler will actually call it a workout. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. But my goodness, I know you didn't always wake up with books just popping out of your head and pens turning into quills. So mind giving us a bit of your backstory of how you got to where you are today since your first time on the Going North podcast?
Oh, wow. How did I start out? Well, I started out, Dom, in acting. I moved to New York. I left college a year early, moved to New York to pursue acting. Did acting, quickly added producing because I didn't want to wait for somebody to hire me. I wanted to put my own shows on. So I started to produce. I produced an off-Broadway show, and it was going well. And then it didn't go so well, as it usually does in acting. So I switched into a TV production, and I was a TV producer for over 15 years in New York. Loved it, had a ball. And then I got that wonderful phone call that my mom had cancer. So my mom was living alone. So what did I do? I moved myself back down to Texas. My boss let me do that because I could fly to New York to do the shows. So I moved back to Texas to take care of my mom. And that sent me on a whole other journey than I'd ever been before, Dom. Now, I had written scripts because I would, besides acting in plays, I also did some film work. And I wrote a feature film, and I wrote the script, and it was quite lovely. And I did it, gosh, maybe 20 years ago. And I thought, well, I'll pursue this. And I was doing my TV producing. And then, like I said, I got my call and came back to take care of my mother. That's what switched my life around.
There we go. That's right, indeed. From the regular pillow to the cool side of the pillow, back to the hot side of the pillow, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So my goodness. So I guess at the age of 12, you always wanted to be on TV and be an actress, and then it turned into something else.
Yeah, I wanted to be an actor, but I always produced, even in junior high and high school. I would give it their friend and we said, let's throw a dance. And we would produce a dance, invite everybody and get the place where we were going to do it and get the soft drinks. So there's always a producer in me. So it doesn't surprise me that I acted and then quickly added producing because, again, I didn't want to wait for somebody just to hire me. I was doing some commercials, I was doing some small time things, but I wanted to do some plays. So I added producing, found a good writer, and we produced, I think, maybe 4 plays. And then I got my TV production. I did like my TV production job, though, Don. I'd have to be in the studio at 4 in the morning, not every day, but when we would do a show like holiday gift ideas for kids, that was one of the shows. Have to be there at 4 in the morning, direct it, do it, shoot the B-roll for it. And that was really quite fun. So I do like producing. And when I did my film, Dom, there were only 10 of us on the film crew, 10 of us. I wrote it, directed it, produced it, and was in it. And one of my dear friends who was in some of Spike Lee's movies, she was the other co-star in it. There were only 10 of us doing it. And we did it in literally 14 days. And it was a feature film, 14 days. I don't know how
Wow.
I did it. It was 20 years ago. I'm not sure I could do it now, but we did it in 14 days. And I don't know about you, but doing it from 7 in the morning till 11 at, I'd say, midnight, it really, I'm surprised I did it, but I did it. I did it well.
That's what I'm talking about. That's right. So you did have the secret to working 32 hours and 24 hours. You love to see.
Yes, I did. I did 32 hours and 24 hours and did it every day. And I remember when we finished filming, waking up for the week after thinking, oh my God, I got to get on set. My mind was still reeling from having to do everything. I'm so glad I did that because I did not know that literally a few years later I would get the call and that would shift my life. Because, like I said, I wrote scripts, but I did not write books. Did not plan on writing books, plan on continuing to write film scripts. So the universe had a whole different idea for me. Oh, I did not know it did, but it did have a whole different idea for me.
Uh, yeah. Definitely got to love those wonderful side quests that the earth will put you on out of nowhere. And my goodness, and it's actually interesting too, because I guess, do you believe that your history with writing the scripts and actually acting it out and everything helped you to become a better writer for books, even though they're two different styles of writing?
Yeah, that really did. I like I said, I did not plan on writing, but certainly did not plan on writing spiritual books about self-love. That was not part of my journey. But when I started to write the books, the first book, How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live, I really wrote it to get me out of the funk, Dom. I'd lost my mother. I had grieved for about 2 years and was still doing my job back in New York. And I was in such a dark, dark place that literally that inner voice, what I call my higher self, but you can call it whatever you want, that inner voice said, you need to do something creative. So I sat down, thought, I'll write a film script. It just didn't feel right. I went through such dark periods with my mother and her cancer, and then with chemo and the whole thing. And of course, losing your parent who I adored just wrecked my heart. That the film just seemed silly. It just seemed silly. And they said, well, why don't you write about what you've learned? So I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. So I sat down and started to write. And I think the fact I had written scripts, first persons, how does that person speak, really helped me to write the first book and even the second book, because I basically write it the way I talk. It's very plain spoken right out there. I don't use big language. I don't have a great vocabulary to begin with because I was tongue tied as a kid. So my vocabulary is not tremendously huge. So I just wrote it straightforward. I want to call it common sense, but I wrote it straightforward. And I think the film did help me write it that way. That first book is written for somebody going through grief or helping someone who's in the process of dying. And it's like a cliff notes, literally a cliff note, so that you can, one chapter is like 3 to 4 pages, that's it, and it ends with 4 questions so that you can think about a few things while you're still helping that person face possibly their death. So it was, I think the film did help me to write the books, in all honesty.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And with that wonderful development skill, basically polishing that sword, my goodness. So, and sorry for the loss of your mom. That's definitely a hard pill to swallow, no matter how many years pass by, because you're always gonna remember, Mister. So my goodness, did that also lead the way for the self-love experiment and where you had to define ways for folks to love themselves? Because I'm pretty sure you probably had to remind yourself of that being the caregiver for.
Oh yeah. Well, now I had done spiritual inner work for I want to say the past 35 years. In all honesty, I did my work in New York, but I would meditate at night. I was working on healing my past wounds, my inner orphans, what I call the inner orphans, those parts of ourselves still stuck in the past, whether it's a 3 or 5 or an 8-year old. So I was doing the inner work. But when they said, write about what you've learned, I did not, I really stumbled for a bit because I thought I kept that kind of separate from my TV work or my film work. Nobody knows I do this work except people, a small group of friends who also did this inner work. And I was like, man, you want me to come out and say this publicly that I do this inner work publicly? I was like, but that's separate from my film work and my actor. I don't know if I want to share that. So that was, in a way, the biggest thing I had to overcome in writing was being willing to share what I had done inwardly with people outwardly because I had kept it private. So that was the one stumble. So I got through that. And I began to write the book, and I kept it very simple because I thought, okay, I'm going to share what I've learned, but oh gosh. And I realized I had learned my self-love. I had not, actually, I have a teacher who said, I said, what did I learn though? I've been doing this work for years. She goes, you're learning how to love yourself. And when she put it that way, the little bell went off in my head. That's what I've been doing, healing these inner orphans, crying out my pain, feeling my rage that, of course, we're not supposed to feel, letting all that up and out. I was returning to self-love. So the first book was a way to get creative, to get out of that funk, that dark. I mean, Dom, I thought I'll never do anything creative again. You might as well take me off the planet now because I've always been creative and not to have creativity in me. I thought I'm done. So the first book was to get my creativity. The second book was to share how I found my self-love. But it took time for me to get where I was willing to share that stuff with everybody out on the planet, to be honest with you. If
That's
that
right
makes any
indeed.
sense to you.
Oh yeah, it definitely can make sense indeed, especially with what you said there about the inner orphans, because it can make sense indeed. Because like with childhood, it varies from person to person, and some folks may have had rougher childhoods than others, and sometimes folks may just lock that part away in the back of their mind for like ever until something triggers it, and you're like, oh shoot, like I thought you were gone, I thought you were sealed away, and it's like, oh crap, it's appeared again. It's a Pokemon.
Yeah. Yeah, it raises its ugly head. And I think everybody has a couple of inner orphans that need some love and attention and healing. I had about 3 or 4. They were, between the age of 4 to about 11 or 12-ish that needed my attention. And some of them needed to vent and rage because they never were allowed to vent and rage because you're not supposed to do that when you're growing up. You're not supposed to vent and rage. Plus, I had a bully in my family. My sister was the bully in the family for my parents and myself. So I had some rage I had to let out. And so I need to deal with the inner orphan that had never been allowed to rage and be angry and just rageful at having a sister who was so vicious and mean. So I let that one out in meditation, not on people, in meditation. Let me be clear about that. When I say you deal with your inner orphans, you do not dump them on other people, because I think half of our issues on this planet is that we're unaware that we're dumping our inner orphans on other people instead of healing them. I think I won't get into politics, but I think that's very clearly what happens. So I did it privately. But I felt everything. And I had another inner orphan who would not say a word. She just wanted to hide literally behind a tree. And she just needed to be loved. She just felt so unlovable that I just needed to love her. And that took time for her to realize I loved her and I was not going to leave her. So I dealt with my inner orphans. And let me tell you, if you will deal with your inner orphans, and this means privately in your own time, privately with nobody else around you, and you listen, first thing is you got to listen to them. You've got to listen to them. Don't judge them. Don't shame them. I had a friend who shamed her inner orphan. I said, well, where did you get that from? She goes, from my mother. I said, that's some of your homework. You need to clear that. But you listen to them, allow them to vent. So the one that needed to vent the rage, I listened and let her vent. The one that needed to be loved, I let her tell me what she needed slowly. She began to let me know she didn't feel lovable. You listen to them and then you love them. You love them wholeheartedly, unconditionally, and you love them. And eventually they'll be brought to the whole and they will go off and play, and you'll be back in charge of your life versus having these inner orphans being triggered by something, maybe your boss or a friend or your romantic partner triggering something in you. They'll be healed and you won't be triggered anymore. That's the point of doing self-love work, to be healed and not to be triggered and to be back into your power.
Oh, that's right. Be back in your power indeed. So hear that right, folks. Don't be shoeboxing your orphans onto people, y'all. That's right indeed. Don't be doing it. That's right. Gotta deal with it yourself. Indeed. That's right indeed. Get into that listening mode, that meditation, y'all. That's right indeed. That's right. Indeed. And it's all right too. It's like, especially with the benefits of meditation, it's like, oh, you get to deal with those I guess the classic monkey mind, as a Buddhist call it, where you got thoughts roaming all over the place, and then you find that little one hiding behind the tree, and it's like, hey, come on out and play, buddy. Don't be full
Yeah.
turtle.
We all have that mind, that what you call the monkey mind, but that's okay, because if you just stay quiet long enough and I think meditation to me is just closing your eyes and focusing your attention, period. Focus. So I would get into a tub because I had emotional work to do. So the hot tub felt good, especially I lived in New York, so it was chilly. So I'd get in the hot tub and I'd focus and say, I want to meet the one who's so snappy at work and it feels so angry. I want to meet her. So I just focus on that, and all those other little monkey minds got quiet, and eventually I would hear a Rachel voice or a hurt voice come out, and that's who I would deal with in meditation. To me, meditation is not just about being quiet. A lot of people think it's about grounding, and that's a good meditation to do if you are overwhelmed, to ground yourself. But I use meditation to do healing work and to find those parts and listen to them, and also meet the parts who are full of joy, happiness, and delight. But that's a little more difficult when you have these inner orphans who need your attention. So I say, deal with your inner orphans first. You'll find your magical child or your upbeat one or the cheerleader inside of you. But I would deal with your inner orphans, because that's why, I hate to say it, but you hear people blame people constantly on television. Well, they're after me. Let's get them. Blame, blame, blame. That's part of the victimhood. And that's part of your inner orphan homework, people. And you're not to do it on other people. You're supposed to heal your own self. And believe it or not, you have an imagination, you have emotions, and you have a higher self, or whatever you want to call it, that can guide you to heal these parts. We're not down here with nothing. We're down here with exactly what we need to be our greater selves.
That's what I'm talking about. Indeed, Joffrey's dropping them gems on you, baby, them jewels, baby. That's right, indeed. You're getting that hot fire. Indeed, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, so since you've been on a boatload of interviews promoting all the good work that you do, my goodness. Well, actually, before that question, so with the process of really taking all of this processes and putting them all together, like what was it like? Do you do journaling daily? Like, what helped you to really get the book finally finished? Because I'm pretty sure having to channel that grief and dealing with that grief and all the orphans, it was probably some extra work you had to do on top of everything else.
Well, luckily, most of the orphan work was done in New York. And when I came back to my mom, I had done most of my inner orphan work. There was one little bit left that I had to deal with, which I did during the grief. And it was dealing with the final piece of my sister. And I was able to forgive her, which, if you can't forgive somebody, you're lugging around a whole bunch of crapola. You got to forgive them so you can be free, people. So I did all that work. And as far as the writing, I did it like I did my scripts. I just sat down in front of the computer and started writing. Dom, I mean, I don't outline. I don't figure out what I'm going to from A to B to C. I just sit down and go, okay, and I start writing, and it literally goes from chapter 1 all the way to the end of the book. I free flow it. I know people like to do outlines and figure out how they're going to get from there to there. I do it free flow. That's how my mind works. I wish I outlined. I think it'd be a great idea. My mind just doesn't work that way. My mind's much more free flowing. So I just wrote it out, and then I got an editor to look at and make some tweaks, and then it was ready to go, to be honest. I think when you're ready to do something, you're kind of inner guided towards doing it. And I think I was ready to do it. The first book was a very simple book. It was, 3 pages for each chapter, kind of a cliff notes on how to stay conscious when you're going through loss. So that book I would write 3 pages and I was done. And the next day I'd write 3 more pages and I'm done. The second book, Dom, was a little more difficult because I thought, okay, I got to explain how I got to self-love, which means I got to share my inner work. The first book, I didn't really share my inner work as much. The second book, I had to share my meditations, my affirmations. How did I deal with it in the outside world when I went to work? I had to share all these tips, and that was a little more difficult. But again, I just sat in front of the computer and wrote it. And I guess it flowed. I mean, I'm assuming it got pretty good reviews. So I'm assuming it did. I did okay on that book. What I didn't do in that book, to be honest, Dom, is I didn't really share a lot about my life. So I was thinking that I would rewrite the second book, The Heart of the Matter, and add my personal story in there. So people will see, okay, maybe you had a bully in your life. Maybe you had somebody who picked on you. Maybe you had, whatever happened to you. We all have somebody in our lives that causes trouble. And how can you deal with it and grow? So I think I might rewrite the second book. Also, I would change the damn title, pardon my French, but the heart of the matter. There's 1,000 books with that title. Oh my God. Oh my God. I had no idea that there were 1,000 books. Again, I did this without knowing a lot about the book industry. I knew a lot more about the film industry than I did the book industry. But I think I may rewrite it and add my a little bit of my own story and how it triggered me to move into finding self-love, because I now can say honestly, I do believe we pick our parents and our family before we come down here. I do believe that. That's just my own personal, nobody else have to believe that. So I know I chose my sister, and I know I chose to lose my self-love because of my sister, because I needed to find that I could find my self-love. And I did it, Dom. I found my self-love again. Yay. So it was quite a journey, but I did it. And I'm proud of that.
Sweet. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So wait, so does that mean we're gonna get some audio versions too from you reading the book as well, maybe, if you decide to republish it?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would do the first book, because that one's somebody who's going through loss, who doesn't have a lot of attention span. I can read through it rather quickly and do it gently with them so they can just get a gist of it and then go through their day to help whoever's going through whatever they're going through. So I think I'll do that one first. And the second one, I think I'll wait till I add those my personal story in there. And then I will do an audio. I do want to do an audio. And actually, I have a third book in my mind. I'm doing a radio show called Spiritual Common Sense. And each one, I always do a segment on this inspires me. So I find different things that inspire me. Now I have about 24 of them. So I'm thinking of putting them into a book. So somebody who just wants to be inspired, they can just open the book to whatever page and read it and go, hey, okay, I can see how this fits into my life, and be a bit more inspired.
That's what I'm talking about. It's a trifecta, baby. That's right. She's gonna have a whole triangle soon. That's what I'm talking about. A whole pyramid.
Yeah, I could have a whole time. And then maybe I'll go back and make a movie. You never know. No, but really, I do think I'll do a third book. But I am enjoying writing the books. It's different than films. I still miss the acting, but I when I come back in my next life, I'll do the acting again. But I do think there's a couple more books in me, to be honest. But I do think everyone should, if you don't like what's going on in your life, rather than looking to blame other people. Now, you can do that in meditation. I blamed my sister for quite a long time in meditation because I needed to get that anger and rage out, and that's okay. But I would say, if you do not like what's going on in your life, you need to look inward versus looking outward. We like to look outward and say, well, it's because of my boss, or it's because I don't have any money, or so-and-so is being mean. That's all giving your power away. Your power lies inward, and therefore you need to look inward and see what you're doing, what you need to change inside of you to empower yourself. Because if something's not going right in your life, it has to do with you, not anybody else. It's really easy to blame other people. I blamed my sister for a long time, but now I know I chose her so I could lose my self-love, so I could find it again. So if something's not going on in your life that you like, do not blame other people. First of all, it's a waste of time, unless you're doing in meditation to get to your anger or rage. But go inward and find out what you need to change inside of yourself. And change takes time. effort and determination. You cannot do one affirmation, one meditation. You cannot repeat something 1,000 times and say, I'm done. It takes time and effort to make these changes. But I can tell you, I made great changes, but I did it, and it took time and effort. So do not let someone tell you, take my class in 3 weeks, you can change your entire life. That is bull hunky. That is bull hunky. It takes a lot more time to make inner changes and lasting changes, but you can do it because I did it. And I have nothing that nobody else has. Everybody has the same things. We have imagination, emotions, and a connection to the divine. So we all have what we need to make these changes.
Boom. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right. Go inward, y'all. That's right indeed. Go in. That's right. Go deeper indeed. Get that metaphorical shovel, y'all. That's right indeed. Dig your way out through the mental snow. That's right. That's right indeed. And go deep in and find that gold. That's right indeed. Maybe you find some platinum too. Definitely find that platinum within you because you are precious indeed. So, my goodness, since you've been on both sides of the microphone and been on the guest side of the game many times, is there a question that you wish folks would ask you more often when you're on the guest side of the microphone?
Oh, that's a good one. I have not heard that. Okay. They ask me, how did I feel about my life turning 180 degrees? I think that would be a good question because that's what happened when I moved back to Texas to take care of my mother. I thought I'll take care of her. We'll move on. And then, I'll go back to New York and do whatever. And the universe had a whole different idea for me. And that was a 180-degree difference from being a TV producer or an actress or a producer, film producer, to suddenly share a separate part of my private life was a 180-degree turn. How do you deal with a 180-degree turn? You deal with it very slowly, first of all. You go, okay, well, I'll do one step at a time because it's shocking. I don't care what it is. It's shocking to be turned around 180 degrees. So I dealt with it very slowly, one step at a time. And I did my first book, and I was, oh my God, everyone's going to know I've got this spiritual side. I'm not just a film producer or an actress, but I have this spiritual side. Ooh, that's kind of scary. So I did it really slowly. But I think to find out how people deal with a 180-degree turn, to be, how do I say that? To change your life 180 degrees, how do you deal with that? I think that would be a very good question to ask.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So, were there cowgirl hats involved since it was Texas?
Oh gosh, no, honey. Oh my God. Oh my Lord. I lived in New York for 35 years. I do not wear cowboy hats. I do not wear cowboy boots. I do not listen to country music. So you can see I stick out down here. It's like, oh, I found a small group of people who kind of think the way I think. There's 46% of us who think the way I think down in Texas. The other side, God bless them. I love them, but Lord, they think differently. No, I do not. But I figure where I am is important. When I went back to New York, I went twice to New York because I came back because my dad had a heart attack, came to help him run his book for a little bit. When I went back to New York, I went back to 106th Street and Central Park West, which at that time was almost called Murderer's Row because it was very dark and dank up there. But I moved up there and I said, well, there must be a reason I'm living up here because I kept planting flowers and people kept stealing the flowers out of the little flower bed I had in the front yard. And I thought there must be a reason. So there must be a reason I'm in Texas. So I figure I have some friends at the gym. I know they're probably much more right-winged than I am because I'm very left-wing, but we get along. So I think, okay, maybe that's why I'm supposed to be down here, just to show people that we can have different viewpoints, but we can still get along. And I noticed that one person, I've sort of opened her up. She's opened me up too, making me be less prejudicial towards the right wingers, to be honest. She's opened me up. I have to give her credit. But I think I've opened her up too, because I've heard her say some things that I'm like, whoa, she would never have said that 2 or 3 years ago without hanging out with me. So maybe I'm here for a reason. I've got to figure we're here for a reason. Look, if you're alive, you have a purpose on this planet, people. I don't care where you are. If you live on top of a mountain, you still have a purpose on this planet. So if you're alive, you have a purpose. So just trust that where you are, there is a reason you are there.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. And that great example you gave too is how we can come together. It's like, hey, we can disagree, but we can still freaking get along. It's not like a whole like a life or death situation. It's like, oh, you don't like who I like, you must die. Like, no,
Oh,
it's not that
oh,
bad.
I know. Well, that's why I did not want to ever come back to Texas again, because the difference between my thoughts and Texas was very different. I'm much more Manhattan, but there are good people, and they're not all nutty down here. There are some nutty ones. I'm not going to lie to you. There's some real nut jobs down here, but there's some nut jobs up in upstate New York too. So I mean, we all have nutty people, but I think we can get along, and I think it's slowly happening. I think if maybe, well, I think people shouldn't like be staring at the TV all day long in certain news channels. I think that would be, that's between you and me. But in general, I think most people don't stare at the TV all day long. And those who do, well, we'll just have to deprogram them at some point because they've been programmed. But I think most people have good hearts. I really do, even though there are days I want to smack somebody, but but I think most people have good hearts if you take time to smile and say, "Hey, how are you doing?" They kind of smile back and say, "I'm hanging in there." So I think most people have good hearts. And I always say this when I start to get kind of feeling heavy and kind of darkish, I remind myself that the dark screams louder when the light gets stronger. And that's what we're witnessing. The light is actually stronger than it's ever been, which makes the dark scream louder, which is what we're seeing happen. The dark screaming because it knows its time is coming. Its time is up soon, not soon. I don't think I'll be on the planet. I think I have to be in another life for that one. But the light is stronger and the dark is screaming. So just remember, when you hear the dark screaming, hey, the light must be stronger.
Ah, the light is stronger indeed. So, my goodness, so what's your morning routine like? Since it sounds like you keep yourself energized and you got all this wonderful energy.
Well, morning, I'm doing a part-time job. God help me. I'm doing it to keep the house because I got a 17-year-old kitty that I promised my mother I would. She rescued 4 little kittens, and I promised her I would take care of them, and one's left. So I'm keeping the house. I'm doing a part-time job from the house, which makes it easier. Mornings, I wake up, I do a couple of little affirmations. I go to the gym. I've been doing the gym since, gosh, last 35 years, gym every morning. So I do the gym, I do my job. And then I do my affirmations while I'm at the gym, frankly. And then I just really try to keep my spirits up. I do, if I hear any little thought in my head that's negative, I go right to the positive. I say negative to that, reject and cancel that, and I go right to the positive. And it really has worked. I don't have a lot of negative chat anymore. You know how we all have that, you talk about the monkey brain, the negative chattering, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're not pretty, you're what, that little mind. I don't have a lot of that anymore. I think it's because I've done the self-love homework, and I'm based more on approving of myself versus disapproving. I approve of myself, which is a big deal because most of us disapprove of ourselves or think we need something to be better. We don't really need anything to be better. We're good enough just the way we are.
That's what I'm talking about indeed. Good with all the O's is extra good.
You
That's right.
make me laugh, Dom. You must be East Coast.
Oh yeah, East Coast with all the coasters. Although sometimes I forget a coaster, but it's okay. It's
Oh, the
okay.
coaster. Oh, my word.
Well, speaking of coasters, that has something to do with food. So, if your wonderful, marvelous book, we'll go with, let's see. I guess the heart of the matter, since that one popped up and the title probably changed in the future. If that book was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, well, if it was a food, well, I mean, my favorite food in the entire world is Tex-Mex. So I mean, got to go with that. Second one's pasta. I would say it's a buffet. How's that? It's a buffet having all of the lovely foods that you can sample from. So it's a buffet. Yeah, I'd say it's a buffet because there's a little bit of everything. I hit imagination, I hit emotions. Emotions we didn't really talk about. That's okay. We can do that another time. Emotions are vital to your growth, and you must get used to venting your emotions and feeling your emotions. Because when your emotions are in alignment and you've cleared your past pains and your emotions are in balance, then your emotions can be the navigational system they were meant to be. Unfortunately, most of us are out of balance emotionally, so we get triggered and we react. Everything's about reacting versus acting. So yeah, I would say it's a buffet. We hit imagination, we hit emotions, we hit meditations, we hit it's a buffet, honey. It's a big fat buffet.
There we go. It's all you can eat. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Just avoid the emotional eating though, since emotions are meant
Well,
to.
yes, I'm sure I've done that too. But I prefer to go into meditation and then give myself a treat that I've earned because I've vented something in meditation. Food is supposed to be enjoyed, people. It's supposed to be enjoyed, not judged or shamed, but it's supposed to be enjoyed. So that's why I say it's a buffet, because you can enjoy it, take a little bit of each thing. And taking a little bit of the book, taking a little piece of this will make a change in your life. Just a little piece. If you add it to your life and do it daily, it can make a change, but it takes work and determination. You cannot do something in 2 weeks and change your entire life. That's where common sense comes in.
That's right indeed. Oh my gosh, we haven't even touched on that. My goodness, how could I not? For those who need to be a common sense activist, what are the tenets of a common sense activist?
Well, I
How
think
can we
first of all, you
join the
wouldn't
religion?
common sense, you would not fall for a conspiracy, number one. That would be the first common sense thing you would notice. You would not fall for any conspiracy, even whether it's a conspiracy that's political or even in the spiritual world. There's different little things that are floating around that are just, it's not going to improve your life. So why waste time on it? That's where spiritual common sense makes sense. I would have friends and they would go to seminars or lectures and they say, oh, they say that so and so, that there's other beings or this, or we're being, somebody's coming to me and touching me and they're harm. How is that going to improve your life, knowing this stuff? To me, spirituality is about knowing what's going to improve your life, not adding weird things and conspiracy things. So I think common sense is, do not fall for conspiracies. If you hear something that sounds a little wacky, go check it out. Many places, not just one place, many places. The second common sense is, do not let fear rule your life. When we do things out of fear, we make dumb choices. Fear will make us into monsters, and we've seen that happen. I know my sister was a bully because she was full of fear. Now I know why she was a bully. She was full of fear. Fear will make you do horrible things. So common sense says, if you are in fear, do not go out into the world. Go in and figure out what caused you to be fearful, and look at it from not disenchanted, from do not associate with your fear. In other words, do not associate with your fear. This is just a fear-based idea that I'm taking as truth, and truth is not based on fear. That's the best thing I can say about fear. Truth is not based on fear ever. So if you're feeling fearful and thinking it's truth, you need to do some inner homework, frankly. So spiritual common sense, do not let fear take you over. Do not let conspiracies take you over. And just say, is this going to improve my life? I think that's one of the most commonsensical things my mother taught me is it going to improve my life? So I think that's one of the tenets of spiritual common sense is it going to improve my life?
Sounds like we heard what the fourth book is going to be about from the soundbite sage herself. That's right, baby. That's right, indeed.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. All right. I'll have to think about that. Maybe that will be my fourth book.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Is it going to improve my life? That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Focus on improving your life, the lives of others, y'all. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed.
Hmm.
For the common
Yeah.
good through some common sense. That's right. That's right, indeed. We will all be giant nickels together. We just can't turn our backs, though, because we'll be musicians. That's right.
Oh my God. Oh my Lord, you're too funny. You can tell my Texas accent has returned since I've returned to Texas, but you do make me laugh, which is a good thing. We all need more laughter. God knows we need more laughter.
Heck
I
yeah.
always say when they say God is so serious, or down here, there's a whole different number about God down here in Texas. But I always say, no, God is sheer delight. Why do you think God's going to judge you and shame you and do all these things? God is unconditional love and God is sheer delight. So why are we also afraid of this being that's going to judge us? That's some of the conversations I've had with my gym friends down here. And a couple of them have heard me, which I think is a good thing. Because they were walking around waiting to be judged. And I was like, oh my word, has nothing to do with unconditional love. That's my feeling. It's just my viewpoint.
Hey, well, it's a good one indeed. Because hey, like it even says in the good old book, the first chapter is like, hey, man, woman, made in His image, and we laugh. So hey, God laughs too. he even
Oh,
talks about
yes.
him laughing at the Bible. So if he
Oh, yes. Big time. Full of delight. Full of delight. Watching us play this game of consciousness that we agreed to play. I'm sure God, Goddess, or whoever you want to call it is full of delight watching us play this game.
that's right, indeed. Some sunny delight too, probably.
Oh, my word.
That's right. There's a plot twist. They didn't say what fruit it was. It could have been an orange. Could have been sunny delight this whole time. We've been drinking from the tree you've been eating.
We've been drinking from. Yes, we have, and we're allowed. Oh,
Indeed.
my gosh.
Oh man. Well, before any more rabbit holes appear, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you know, wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in the current year with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, well, I would say adore yourself, cherish yourself, treasure yourself, be delighted with yourself, celebrate yourself. That's what I would say to the 25-year-old that had this mind who was saying you're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough, you're not talented enough. I would say, oh my gosh, just cherish yourself, delight yourself. You're here for a reason and you're here on purpose. You're not a mistake. You're here on purpose and you're exactly the way you're supposed to be. That's what I would say to myself. And I would say, laugh, and enjoy your life. And anyone who wants to shame you or something, bless them and then move on. Bless them and move on. Do not waste time.
Woohoo! Hashtag bless your heart, right?
Yeah, that's a Southern. I don't think that's a Texas. That's a Southern thing. Bless your heart. They always say, bless your heart. I never heard that in Texas, but I've heard it on television that people say that. Bless your heart. Well, I just say a New York thing, which I won't hear, but it's F you. That's what I say.
Yeah.
F you. I don't say bless your heart. I just say F you and walk away. But yeah, I would say cherish yourself, delight yourself, treasure yourself, be kind to yourself, be gentle with yourself, learn about yourself. Big part of our journey down here, learning about ourselves, self-discovery, self-journey. I would say all those things to that 25-year-old. And I would say, and be proud that you're here and you're doing what you want to do in New York, acting and producing. Be proud of it. Don't be ashamed of it. Don't just be proud. And I mean, in good sense, not in a, I'm better than you sense, but in a good sense, as everyone should be proud that we're here playing this game. And it's a cool game. I'm sure I'll do it again. And hopefully I'll do it a little better the next life than I did in this life. But this life was very important. I got my self-love back, so I don't have to do that again.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So, my goodness, folks need to keep up with the wonderful, joyful Joffrey and all of her magical wares. So, for those who need to do just that, what's the best way for folks to do so?
Well, they can go to my website, which is joffremcclung.com, or it's allaboutselflove.com will get you to my website as well. Just ITS, it's allaboutselflove.com. You can read a couple of excerpts from my book there. You can even click on it and order the book, because the heart of the matter, there's 1,000 books with that damn title. My mistake. You can read my blogs. I do once a week videos, which are, usually about 3-4 minutes long, 5 minutes. Yeah, and you can just find out a little bit more about me. And you can also listen to my radio show, which is on healthylife.net every Monday, the first Monday of every month. It's called A Spiritual Common Sense. And you can go there and hear my past shows there as well.
Woohoo! That's what
Woo-hoo! Do it. And you can get my books. Please get my books, especially the one that's got 1,000 titles after it. Good Lord. I will retitle it at some point.
That's true. And then you'll have a collector's item, and then you have to find Joffrey and have her sign it. That way it'll be double the money. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. You'll
From
have
your
a
mouth. From your mouth to God's ears.
That's right. So heard that right, folks. So make sure you wear an orange robe and shave your head before you appear before too. So that way she knows you listen to this episode.
Oh, wow. Oh, my word. You're too funny. Dom. You need a comedy show. I mean, this is sort of got some humor to it, so that's a good thing. But you definitely need a stand-up comedy show.
Who knows? We'll see what the future holds indeed. So that's right indeed. So for laughing good old times, gotta love being on going north indeed. So you're the right folks. Keep up with Joffre and all of our wares. Better look out for that rebranding and retitling. It's gonna be shinier. It's gonna be bigger, badder, and better without the butter. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Save butter
Maybe a
for the
little bit of
bread.
butter. Maybe a little bit of butter.
Ah, that's right. Gotta keep it smooth. That's right. That's right indeed. Gotta slide. That's right. That's right indeed. Well, before I even go anywhere further with that, because I had no idea where I was going with it, any parting words before we close up shop?
I would say this. I would let everyone know, I don't care who you are, where you live, what you believe, or any of that. You are magnificent. You are stunning. You are spectacular. You are joyful. You are delightful. And I hope you treat yourself just a little bit that way. That's what I would say to these people. You are just spectacular and magnificent.
One of the greatest investments you'll ever make in your lifetime will be using your time, and you did just that. Thanks a bunch for investing your time by listening to this wonderful podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review or share this episode with at least 3 people that you think would get some value out of today's content. Advance others to advance yourself.